Hey guys, I'm Billy Pierro, and I just wanted to start talking to you guys. So I got a friend. I have David with me, and we're talking a lot about different things about Insider and parts about Vegas entertainment that we would get together on a weekly basis and just kind of have conversations about. And we were thinking, why not put that out for everybody? So we decided to do this video. We hope that you get some entertainment and maybe some information out of it. We are not experts, so we're doing our best to research and to give you as best information as we have, and to bring in people that really can talk about that and are a little bit more experts about what's going on and might be more in the know of it in the moment than we are. Today we have a guest. His name's JJ Gonzalez. He is currently at the Strat.
Yeah, and I think this is, like you said, this kind of started as, well, we were just talking weekly, and being in entertainment, we just talk about it all the time. So we might as well put it out there, and hopefully you guys engage with us and let us know what you think. We're going to put out some ideas. We might be off base. We might be wrong. We might be right. And I will call us out when we're right all the time. Yeah, no, I think this could be a lot of fun. I'm excited to talk to JJ. I'm excited to hang out here with Billy. And yeah, looking forward to it.
Well, hey guys, I am JJ Gonzalez, currently with the Strat ticketing department. Our options right now are attractions. So we have our observation deck, our thrill rides, and our sky jump. We also have a comedy club. We have a circ tent in the back where Celestia resides, and MJ Live on property. Not all operating at the moment, but that's what we have at the Strat. A little bit of background is I've been in the ticketing entertainment industry since 2006 across Mirage, Aria, MGM Grand, with the production company Spiegelworld, and done a little bit of everything in between.
Well, great to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much, JJ. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Are you allowed to talk about like the safety measures and things that you guys have in place?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not a lot, to be honest. It's mostly, I mean, like it's the casino stuff, obviously, like masks, social distancing, things of that nature. But it's mostly just like reduced capacities. And then the showroom for comedy is set up for the 25 feet from the stage, guests every 6 feet apart in pods of 4. So, we don't have like real shows to go off of to kind of go to.
Does the ticketing side of it, is that hard to, because I mean, I could assume the technology is maybe not there to be able to limit it to like, to those pods and things like that. Like, do you have to sell 4 seats together? And if only 3 people buy it, then what happens? Do you just lose the revenue for that additional seat, or like, how do you handle that?
I'm so thankful that our room is a GA room. So like literally we don't have to worry about that at all. I have the easiest showroom in the city, I think. Just because we sell GA, and then the ushers, of course, seat the pods. So if they need to remove a seat, they remove a seat. If they need to like put parties that are together in pods near each other, they have the ability to do that. So
that's awesome.
It makes it super easy for me. Like the challenging part will be when like shows actually come back and we have to worry about like putting people together.
In terms of like your ticketing duties, or like the platform that you're using, and I don't remember the platform that you're using, but were there a lot of changes that needed to be made to the actual ticketing system, or since it's GA, it's really you're selling and your showroom team is really seating and bearing the brunt of that work?
So we use Showware, but they actually put in place, during closure, like a COVID restriction when purchasing tickets. So if and when we do go on sale with a venue that's seated, it will allow us to open everything up And then when a guest chooses their seats, it will auto kill like the next 6 seats.
Wow.
Yeah, so I believe like the labor of the ushers and the showroom team is going to change a little bit when things do come back, because that'll be in their responsibilities as far as making sure people are social distancing, or in showrooms that did open up, like where people get up and dance, that they're dancing 6 feet away from other guests and things like that.
Are you finding, are you selling out? Is it popular right now?
We do sell out nightly, but we have only a handful of seats. We have 32 to 36 is our max.
Yeah.
So it's easy to sell out a 36 seat venue when there's nothing else performing in town.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was thinking, you know, and I didn't realize, I thought maybe you'd hit that 50 maximum, because I know that, at least I've heard that the shows are at 50 seats capacity. So I thought maybe you hit that and that might be a little bit more profitable. But yeah, without that much open right now, I can assume that you're the only thing. So you're probably not running any discounts, any other promotional stuff that you normally did. It's probably just straight full price, right?
We still are running discounts, actually, because our comedy club makes their money off of the bar.
Yeah.
So
Makes sense.
So are you, since you have discounts in place, are you still working with brokers?
we are still working with brokers, yeah. So
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So have you found it difficult working with the brokers?
it is a little more difficult because all of your contacts are now gone. So you're dealing with, just one main person that works for the company. So that's a little more difficult because they're trying to balance everything else in town. But I mean, for the most part, we haven't had a lot of changes since we opened. So it's just kind of business as usual with them.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, EBG's business is essentially just going back, like their main, the meat of their business is now tickets at work, right? That whole corporate side, that's their main business now. Because they've been out of concierge business now for a couple of years, right?
Yeah.
And just with the last few shows I worked, I just remember they just had no real focus on, last minute tickets like everyone else does. They essentially stopped competing online, right? Which I think makes sense. It's so expensive to compete online, especially with the big monster Vegas.com in the room. Like they spend so much money on that stuff. It's just
absolutely
pretty interesting.
Has anybody shut down that you know of? Like I know Vegas, the app, like, because I feel so out of that world right now. Is anybody that you're not working with that you used like pre-pandemic that you were working with?
I mean, tickets for tonight never came back.
Yeah.
So they've been closed since March of last year. Even their online platform. So
that's wild. Like I'm so curious to see how T for T comes back. Like that, I mean, talk about the elephant in the room for real, because these guys are responsible for, I mean, you guys would maybe know a little bit more better. You guys have been around a little longer than I have, but I mean, they were making up easily 30 to 40% of ticket sales, and those are a day of or day before. And, does that model survive after the pandemic?
Yeah, it's going to be difficult, especially with shows that have limited capacity. So they can pretty much sell themselves.
Right.
Yeah, I heard that you're still doing the LVRTA calls and you're still part of that like ticketing association world. Yeah.
Yes.
So what is the LVRTA? Something I never participated in once.
So it's the Las Vegas Regional Ticketing Association. I mean, everybody is kind of in a holding pattern right now. We're obviously all trying to plan for entertainment to reopen and all of our avenues like normal, but it's all just kind of a holding pattern based on our current occupancy restrictions.
So you and I both opened some shows together and worked for different Cirque shows. So what do you think about, like, just give me your thoughts about, like, what do you think about Cirque coming back, the announcement of Zumanity closing? I mean, that broke my heart. And I'm really close with Edie, So it's just so many things about all that. But just like, what do you think is going to be the future of Cirque? Because that really is the big dog in the room. When they open, that's going to pave the way or be the last remaining of the shows that are going to be opening. So we don't know where they're going to fall. What's your thoughts on them, as you have love in your background?
Yeah, well, and Sarcana, if you look that way. It makes me nervous for this town because, yeah, like you said, Cirque will pave the way kind of for the rest of the shows in town, and it's kind of a hard model because their production value's so high to operate a show and put a show on. So it just is really going to be contingent on, like, are people willing to come to Vegas? Are people willing to pay that premium ticket price for a Cirque show? And what's going to happen when they do open and don't operate where they want to be?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's JJ touched on a lot of points. I don't know. Like, Cirque is not cheap. Even the lower tier shows, right? What would be the lower tier? What would have been Zumanity and Mystere, right? That's the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mystere's been around so long. It's a staple right off the bat, right? Oh, and Mystere are the two kind of like you would never really see leaving, I think.
I don't think Mystere is going to go anywhere because, and I would have, who knows, because I would have said something similar about Zumanity, but Mystere being, it's not at an MGM property. So I think that Treasure Island is definitely interested in keeping that going. But two, I think that, kind of what JJ was saying earlier about the Magicians, I think Mystere is much lower production value, at least in the realm of the Cirque world. It's probably the lowest production value because all those pieces are paid for. Like they're maybe refreshing it every once in a while, but it's nowhere near what a new show will run was, or what they have to do to keep up with the water and everything. So Mystere's, I feel like Mystere is very safe. I would have, if I was a betting man, I would have bet that Mystere and were going to be the two shows that were definitely going to be reopened and not touched. It's all the rest of them that I start to wonder about.
So kind of switching gears back to the future. It seems like, and I don't know if you guys have seen this, but it looks like Live Nation is going to be wanting vaccine proof to buy tickets. Maybe that works in other markets. Does it work here in Vegas? Is it sustainable? And how do you implement that?
I totally want to hear JJ's take on this.
JJ, you go first.
So from the ticketing association meetings, they were doing some like bubbled boxing during this, and everybody had to be tested, like a rapid test before they went in. It was like 200 guests, I think, and then they would have to wait for that rapid test before they could enter the facility. So I can see stuff like that happening, or proof of a vaccine to go into a place. It's really interesting.
I'm sorry to cut you off. So, and if you don't know all the information about it, that's fine. But so you're saying that they had to get a rapid test. So how fast do they get the result? In an hour or 2 hours?
15 minutes.
Oh, is it a minute?
20 minutes, yeah.
40 minutes.
Oh, okay. So it was literally like you had people lining up, getting their test, and then once they got their results 20 minutes later, then they can show you and be let in.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
From what I understand, so.
But do you guys think that works in Vegas?
That's a tough one.
Just
that was for a small like fight. So that was what, maybe like 200 people, when they could have that many people in a room. And on a large scale, I have no idea.
I know.
It'd be really hard to implement.
I think Live Nation wants to, I think you're supposed to like submit some kind of proof before you arrive at the venue, I think is my understanding of that. Maybe, again, I'm curious to see, like, how do you implement that? And just knowing the nature of the guests in Vegas, is that a particularly successful route to take? Or do we just have to wait out the pandemic and say, well, people are going back to normal and we're not going to require it? Because how do you do that? And then does the hotel have to be in front of that and say, well, if you're staying at X property and you want to see a show at our venue, you need a vaccine, and that needs to be presented at the front desk. I don't know how that works. I'm just curious to see, because if Live Nation starts to implement that across their venues, Vegas is absolutely going to feel that. How do you do it?
I think there's so many layers to it. That's really interesting. I don't know. I really don't think it would be successful. I think it's going to cause a lot of problems if they tried implementing that in Vegas.
Yeah.
We're different, right? I know every every artist, everyone that we've ever worked with, that's not familiar with Vegas, and you tell them, look, Vegas is a unique marketplace. It doesn't run like anywhere else. We've sold out everything. Don't worry about it. Okay, but Vegas is just
New York.
Different, no, we've sold out the West End. We've sold out every major venue. Like, yeah, but Vegas is just such a wild place. This is the only city where in the same property that you're at, you have competition. There's multiple venues in one property. No one else does that. And it sometimes isn't one, sometimes there's 3 or 4 options at the same property.
And multiple options. I think about the changing, and I don't think this happens really anywhere else, that you have a place like Rose Rabbit Lie or Mayfair that offers some kind of dining, entertainment, unique kind of venue that's competing.
It's always wild to me when you have when you're training ticketing staff and you're loading new shows and new programs, and you have multiple venues at your property, and you have to be an expert on multiple productions, and that I think we underestimate the importance of ticketing. Constantly ticketing gets well, but they're going to sell tickets, that's fine, or you just kind of brush them to the side because that's what they do. But there's quite a bit to know. Every show has its own pricing scheme. Every show has its own scheming for upgrades or incentive program. And that's back to the incentive program. You could have wildly different incentives at the same property for different productions, and you're like, what? It's a lot of information to take in for these guys. And I think I don't know what the going rate is anymore for a ticket agent, but some of them are starting at $10 to $12 an hour. And it's not a lot of money for having someone screaming at you, drunkenly screaming at you and calling you names. And, you're representing not only the venue and the property, but you're representing the production, and you're representing multiple productions, and you have to keep your cool. And you're just like, I'm just telling you it's $50, man. I'm not telling you anything else. I didn't insult you either. I'm just telling you it's a $50 ticket. I can't do anything about it, It's wild. Ticketing is a wild world.
Yeah.
Well, conventions represent, I actually do not know what they represent in Vegas. All I know is that without conventions, the city is essentially dead. Yes, we still have our drive-in tourists coming from Arizona, Southern California. Always. Without that, without Southern California, without Arizona, Vegas doesn't exist. But the conventions and the planning and the economy around conventions, it's incredibly vital to the city. Without it, look at where we're at now. We haven't had a convention in forever, and everyone's affected. These are jobs. I guess starting from down on the floor, you need crews to set up. You need crews to set up the convention. Even if it's a small convention, there's booths. There's assigned places for all the vendors and all of those things. Someone has to set it up. It's not usually the person themselves, but there's a crew that comes in from the venue, like Sands or whoever, right? Or the convention center. They come in, they're moving equipment around, they're ensuring that the schematics that the convention asked for are going to be true and correct. So that's one level. I guess another level is the coordinators, the work coordinators that have to say, hey, I need this number of people that can operate heavy machinery. I need this number of custodians. I need this number of people to help set up. So you have a lot of labor that goes into it. This is before the conventions even arrive.
Yeah.
The salespeople, room nights, private events that conventions hold that people here on the ground in Vegas have to coordinate. The convention side of every property in Vegas has a conventions business or a conventions department. I think them and catering are like hand in hand, right? So all those jobs are gone.
And in addition to that, you know, I mean, I love how you've laid that all out, but then you start thinking externally too. You start thinking about a company like Freeman. I know so many people that work at Freeman, or worked at Freeman, that I don't think that place is even in business at the moment. At least all my contacts are gone, because I don't know how much you know about Freeman, but that place is completely dependent on conventions. They do all of the draping and all of the booths and all of the like
they're responsible for light and sound, because some of these conventions are so tech heavy that you need to have lighting, and some of it is basic, some of it is complex. You know, we have walls of lights, we have walls of video. You need someone to operate, to man, to troubleshoot. And to your point, without Freeman, like it's just wild to think that there's a whole side of Vegas that it's just not operating right now. And I would love to see a number or something to know what it truly represents, because it's got to be massive. It's got to be just at least 50 or 65% of the business we do in Vegas, I would venture to guess, because I mean, when you look at the convention schedule in a regular year, I mean, it's jam-packed. You know, you could have multiple lanes going, like what kind of convention and it's insane.
And well, yeah, and, you know, kind of to your point, it's absolutely insane. And you have the big ones. You have the CES and the Builders Show. You have all these huge ones, and then in between that, literally the same days as that, the same weeks as that, you have all these other what we consider little, but are still 500, 200, 300, still hundreds of people that are coming in addition to the thousands of people that are coming in for these big ones that they definitely roll out the red carpet and really plan for. That you have all these other ones that are really filling all this other convention space. I mean, everybody has convention space. I mean, they've torn down showrooms to add additional convention space. So to your point,
that massive space, right? Didn't they just like the convention center just also expanded to a massive? I mean, I think this goes into this whole conversation about diversifying Vegas. We've been saying that after the 2008 financial crisis, my God, or 2007, 2008, 2010, right up until that point, we got to diversify, but we kind of doubled down on tourism as our base. And I think generally speaking, I mean, I think before the financial crisis, there was this idea that Vegas was recession proof, and that came crashing down when we all lost our jobs in 2009.
Yeah.
And of course, now during the pandemic, I mean, the pandemic is on another level just because it's health. But I don't know. I want convention business to come back. I'm not going to make the argument that it shouldn't exist, but I would like to see us do something else, because people need jobs, you know, and there's a lot of people that work at Freeman that I believe those would be transferable skills to other kind of industries potentially. But it's just insane. Like, I don't know that Vegas comes back until conventions come back. I mean, I think that's a fair kind of assessment, because even the tour industry, like my tour company, I haven't operated since March 15th. It doesn't make sense to. It doesn't make sense to keep advertising knowing that the biggest drivers of Vegas are actual drivers coming in from Southern California and Arizona, and they can drive anywhere that I could take them. Or that, you know, I guess I'm curious to know like how Maverick is doing. I've heard rumors of layoffs there. Sundance closed. To the tour business, I think they still do charters and whatnot. But those are, you know, like it's just wild when you think of what the Vegas economy is. And as widespread as it is, it's entirely dependent on people needing us to do things for them. It's all tourist based.
And, you know, I think, you know, kind of, you know, what you've said, you know, we've talked about this a little bit too. What is the pandemic teaching people, or teaching these companies? You know, like a CES. CES just had their first virtual convention. You know, it just ended last week. So I don't know. I don't know what the numbers of that were. I don't know what metric they used to measure the success of that, but they did it virtually, and they unveiled all of the tech stuff that they normally unveil. So I don't know if that was successful for them to do it that way. If they do find that to be successful, will they choose not to do an in-person one ever again? Like, those are the things that now you start to think about. I think that there's some things like the Builders Show. I don't know how they could do that virtually, because they actually bring in all of that heavy machinery and things like that.
And new advances, people with their hands on, especially for like those kind of builder conventions where they want to see, I want to see this work. I need to like, and these guys are a little bit different from the CES crowd, where they're a little bit more hands-on in a way that I need to see this work. I need to understand the way that this will be and how it will affect my business if I choose to purchase something like this, and how it would make my business potentially more efficient, or what my costs are short-term versus long-term. I am thinking that, generally speaking, we'll see convention business come back. I want to touch on that here in a second too, though, because we have some competition with San Diego and Orlando, right? Like those are Vegas, San Diego, Orlando. This is the three big names in conventions, right? But I think there's something about, at every level of the convention business, and I don't know if you can speak to this at all, but like I know personally, a lot of tour businesses come from people sneaking out of sessions. I'm skipping my morning session. I want to help.
100%, yeah.
I'm skipping the afternoon session. I want the Sunset Maverick tour around the city. I want to see the Grand Canyon. I'm from Florida. I don't know what a mountain looks like. So I'd like to do some kind of a hiking tour, or at least a road tour. So I think I see it coming back, because if you're going to bother with a convention, you're going to do it well. And Vegas does that very well. But I think on the next level, if we follow that logic of conventions coming back, well, then I'm thinking out loud, I guess, how do we compete with San Diego? How do we compete with Orlando? I think those cities are essentially open. Maybe not San Diego, but Orlando's been doing business. How does Vegas compete with that? We have gaming, we have shows, we have like everything that's closed is what makes Vegas Vegas, right? So we need to kind of be back, and it's kind of the chicken or the egg thing. You can't just bring back entertainment today. It would fail. Generally speaking, it would just fail. The production costs are too high. There is a bottom line to everything. And it just wouldn't make sense until tourists are actually able to come into Vegas. So I'm definitely not of the mindset of, we'll open it and they'll come, because that's just not true. People aren't driving. If a convention that's 100,000 people, normally, I venture to guess we'd only get 10 to 15,000 tops. And that, while it's still a lot, does not represent the number of people we need to function as a city, like not even close. So we have to wait until people are comfortable traveling. International conventions, international tourism is non-existent right now. Until that.
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up. I think that's another level to that. You're talking about the conventions, and that's a huge piece of that. And I know we talked about this earlier, but that's what I've heard is a big reason why they're selling the Venetian, because their Macau part of the business is doing so well that they just feel like it's a good time to get rid of their Vegas portion of their business. And that's insane to me. I mean, I've heard that for years, that the Macau and the overseas parts of their businesses do well, but I never thought it would do so well that they would get rid of their flagship Vegas properties. And that seems to be what Venetian's doing.
This feels like very inside Vegas, like very insider stuff, but we're all in Vegas and we talk about this stuff personally, so we might as well put it out, and we want you guys to engage and let us know what you want to hear about, and we'll try and do research and talk about it. And if you have an interest, like, let us know, and we can make this a community kind of a thing.
Yeah, and then we'll put links to everything that we're talking about in the comments below, so you guys can click on that and learn a little bit more like we did about all this. Tell us what you want to hear from us. We'd love to do that. Tell us who you want to hear from. We'll do our best to get people that are in Vegas that you might want to talk to. Is there a performer that you might want to, somebody from a certain show, somebody from a certain property that could really talk about that. I love that. I would love to try to get somebody like that, because that's what everybody wants to hear.
No, absolutely. And I think the more people engage with, the more we know what direction. Otherwise, we can just talk about ticketing and marketing for the next 30 hours, and I'm fine with that too, because it's a really interesting industry that obviously holds a place in my heart, just because of how much time I've spent there. And all the people that we've met that you still are friends with and keep in touch with. You know, the Vegas entertainment landscape is vast and small. You know, it's a really small world. It's a big world, it's a small world. We all kind of know each other, I think, in some way or another. We've all worked together in some way or another, and you know, it's really interesting stuff. I think these are things that, like you said, we started this to. We were just talking about it on a weekly basis. We might as well put it out there and have other people join the conversation, because I think it's not only fun, but it's really interesting to see, kind of looking back pre-pandemic and looking forward post, to see what's going to happen, you know. And yeah, maybe some of our theories are wildly off. You know, maybe day 2 of post-pandemic, everything goes exactly the way it was. T for T's back, Vegas.com selling. The word parody will come back into the landscape. Who knows, you know? But,
oh, people are going to know what we're talking about. we're at a really interesting time, and you know, that's why we wanted to do this, because we have a lot to talk about. We are doing a lot of talking, and we thought, why not involve other people in this conversation? But also, things are changing, and you know, as much as it feels like it's the same every day right now, because we were kind of told that it was only going to be a short time before we'd all go back to work, and now it's been almost a year. That you're starting to lose a little bit of hope. Then you have things like the vaccine coming on board, and you start to get that renewed sense of hope, and you wonder, you know, and then, you know, things that we'll talk about on our next one, like the Area 15 opening, and you know, things that, you know, are great and interesting and fun and totally in line with what Vegas is, like you had said earlier, fun and just irreverent and just who we are.
That's a very interesting, it's a really interesting new opening, because it's very different from anything else. It's off strip, so it's going to rely on tourism and locals, which I think it will succeed in. But we'll get into that next week, because I think the feeling of Area 15 is completely different from anything else we've ever seen before in Vegas. And I'm really excited to talk about it, because I think there's some really cool things happening. And having been to Meow Wolf in Santa Fe last year, it's pretty cool. It's a really cool thing.
I think, like to your point, I think Meow Wolf is cool, is awesome. I'm so excited. I've never been to it, but when I first heard, I don't even think I heard that it was opening here yet. I'd been given a bunch of videos and been served some stuff on Facebook, and I was like, what is this really cool thing? Like, I got to visit that. And then like literally probably like a week or two later, they're opening in Vegas. So, you know, it was all just part of that. But I think in addition to that really cool thing that's coming into Vegas, you have, I mean, at least from what I'm hearing, you have people from Vegas. You have somebody involved in the Blue Man Group that's somehow involved with like the creative side of all of that, and you have chefs that are very iconic with Vegas that are part of it. You know, you have all these elements that are Vegas, and you have this really cool piece that's coming from outside of Vegas. It's really cool, and I don't know if it's going to get the right publicity. I don't know if it's going to get the right foot traffic. I don't know if it's going to get all of that stuff. You know, I'm sure that they're dealing with the same capacity issues that everything else is. So it's interesting.
We haven't even touched on nightlife, which is it is its own monster in the Vegas landscape. It is gigantic, and I think represents hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions, in revenue. And that's, again, it's its own little economy, right? You have to have the promoters that you're going to see the promoters out there. They make money. The booking people, the marketing team, the PR team, the artists. Again, you need to have staff inside of these massive venues to take care of the guests. You need your bartenders, you need your cocktail waitresses. We haven't touched on the summer yet with the pool party
clubs, and
a whole other side of it. So there's a lot to talk about, and there's a lot to theorize about, and
I know this isn't like, I mean, I know this is so small, this is so petty about all of the big picture stuff that we've just talked about, but just say that masks are something that we're going to be living with for the next few years. How do you have a mask? How do you require people in a club to wear a mask? They've invested so much money in them, and what do they do now with that space? They turn it into a concert venue? What do they do?
Another concert venue, fantastic.
Right? It's not convention space. They don't need that right now either. But I mean, I think a good spot to leave this is what you had said earlier, is how do we reinvent ourselves? Where do we go with this? I think that's a great question for everybody that's watching this to really think about and give us some comments. I would love everybody's, if we have 1,000 people watch this, I would love 500 comments about what you think the reinvention of Vegas is, after hearing some of our discussion, because I don't know what it is. And I would love to get some of that feedback and research it and talk about that in the future videos.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, yeah, how do we go forward? Or do we have to go back? You know, are we just going to be back to Vegas the way it was before? I don't know. It's a really great conversation. And there are smarter people and there are people more with insider knowledge about these workings than us. But I think it's a great conversation to have because it will affect all of us. You know, how Vegas comes back will just, it is the center, the tourism, the strip is the centerpiece of Vegas. It doesn't matter how you cut it, doesn't matter how it goes, everything comes back to the strip. So it's going to be really interesting to see. And again, would love to hear what anyone else has to say about it because we could be off base. You know, we don't even know what we're talking about. Who knows?